Welcome to the Dynasty Effect, where the legacy of the Clash of Dynasties docuseries doesn't end, but continues.
This is a podcast that puts it all together, you know?
This is the Dynasty Effect.
Welcome to the Dynasty Effect Podcast, where we continue the storytelling from the Clash of Dynasties. I'm Ben Hada, executive producer and host of the podcast, and with me is my cohort from Walsh Jesuit, cast member and producer, Frank Favaro. Frank, how are you, sir?
Ben, I'm doing great, brother. How are you, man? How's it going?
Doing great, man. I'm doing great. It's getting cold. We're full on in wrestling season, man. The winter has fallen, so trying to stay warm out there. How about yourself?
Try to do the same, man. Trying to stay after it. I almost slipped on the ice this morning trying to get out on the trails, but you got to go slow. You got to be methodical.
Keep those morning walks up, man. I've been fighting in that briskness, wearing shorts under my sweats, but I got to get them in. Got them get that day started like that. So, all right. Well, let's get right into it. Our guest today, when I say the name Chris Bono, what comes to your mind, Frank?
Oh, man. Chris Bono, I think of Champion. I remember watching Chris win the NCAAs when I was a senior in high school. And I was like, wow, that's to me, that's what I want to be. Right. So Chris Bono also having a vowel on the end, an O like myself, even made him even cooler. So really excited to talk to Chris.
Fellow Italiano.
That's right.
Yeah, Chris is an NCAA champ. He's head coach at a Big Ten school. He's one of Florida's greatest wrestlers. But when I think of Chris Bono, I think of Bobby Douglas. Because my dad was best friends with Bobby Douglas. And whenever my dad would do summer camps, we would always be on his tail and be right there in the summer. And from when he made the move from Arizona State to Iowa State, I was right in college. And so I became a camp counselor at Bobby's camps, and Chris was on the team. So we actually shared dorms together at one point, busting on some kids, some campers. But anyway, let's get right to it. The guy is the king of everything, a 3-time state champ from Florida, cadet national runner-up, Big 8 and Big 12 champ, NCAA champ, like we said, and a coach all over from Iowa State to Chattanooga to South Dakota State University, and now heading up Wisconsin. So let's get right to it. Let's bring on Chris Bono.
Chris Bono.
Chris Bono.
Chris Bono.
Chris Bono.
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 Bono. Chris Bono from Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida.
3-time state champion from Florida.
Coming all the way up from Florida and making a name for himself.
The 1996 NCAA champion at Iowa State.
Champion at 150, the first Florida native ever to win an NCAA title. Take a look at Chris Bono. You're looking at some guns for arms. They look like pythons coming out of his shoulder. Front headlock by Bono, and there you just see him starting to spin. Too powerful, drives him down. Need to do better than that in order to take down Chris Bono.
It's 1 versus 1.
Bono turning it up now.
You're dominating another person.
Bono in on a nice high crotch.
It's a pretty good feeling.
Chris Bono picks up the 66-kilo national championship. Bobby Douglas, Cale Sanderson also over in the corner. That's some top-notch coaching, if you ask me.
And at the top of the sport and the top as a coach too.
From Iowa State.
South Dakota State. The head coach of the Wisconsin wrestling program.
Wisconsin head coach.
Hall of Famer.
Chris Bono.
Chris Bono.
Tough year.
Bono.
Tough year. Bono. Tough year.
Our winner, Chris Bono.
Keep showing up, win or lose. Keep showing up. They loved what they just saw.
Is there any questions?
That was a good video.
All right, welcome, Chris. How are you, sir? Where do we find you these days?
Wonderful, man. Just sitting in my office here at Camp Randall Stadium in Madison, Wisconsin.
What's the temperature out there?
It was actually very cold this week. I think the high today is only -10, so we're having a bad week.
Minus 10.
I know it's been a bad week.
I was thinking about before we jump into the major things. The first thing that popped up to my mind was doing some research. Was like, how did this Florida boy end up in Iowa, South Dakota, and Wisconsin? All the people I know from Florida are still in Florida.
Right, right. Dude, it's actually a crazy story, to tell you the truth. I was getting recruited by a lot of people, and then I went to junior nationals, and I wound up beating a guy named Daryl Weber. And when I got home from that junior nationals, I got a phone call from Iowa State saying, "Hey, that guy you just beat's going to the University of Iowa. We have to beat Iowa every year, and we need you." And then the rest was history. I went to Iowa State, and I never left the Midwest.
And when you were recruited too, that was Jim Gibbons that was recruiting you. That wasn't Bobby, right?
Correct, correct. Yeah, I signed under Jim Gibbons, and when Jim retired, I was supposedly Joe Gibbons was getting the job, his brother. And that's who really did the majority of recruiting and all that. And I got to know him real well. And then lo and behold, Bobby Douglas calls me on Easter morning.
So I've heard that story about how you didn't even believe him. Your dad had
That's
to
right.
jump on the phone. But talk about, I mean, Bobby is, I've known Bobby since I was a kid. We called him Uncle Bobby.
Yeah.
He was, my dad's roommate at Oklahoma State. They're on the same national championship team together. And like I said, I was at his camps from when I was a child all the way through college. But what was it about? Well, what was your first impression about Bobby? And then what did you learn as you settled into, under his tutelage while you were at Iowa State?
Well, when I got that first phone call from him telling me he's the head coach at Iowa State, he didn't want me. He basically told me right then, you can be released from your scholarship. Here's how to get released. And I was like, oh man, no, I want to go to Iowa State. And now as soon as that, typical Bobby, he said, put your dad on the phone. And then they had their conversation. But you know what? Bobby's very misunderstood. You know what I mean? As you would what you're well aware. An amazing man, an amazing person, an amazing family guy. But he wears that tough exterior out. And, he molded my career. He's molded everything I've done in the sport of wrestling. And I can't ever be more grateful to him.
Chris, why do you think he took that approach at first?
Well, I realize it now as a coach, right? When you don't recruit somebody, he didn't recruit me out of high school. I wouldn't want me either, right? I came from Florida where I stunk. I was good, but from Florida, you know what I mean? And I know he probably had bigger plans. He could use my scholarship money, and I'm not his guy, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure he already had a plan on who he was bringing with him, and I wasn't in those plans.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Ben.
I was going to say, talk about, you mentioned that there wasn't much thought about wrestling in Florida at that point in the early 90s. I mean, I think the only school I had ever heard of was Brandon, Florida.
Yeah.
It was ranked. But Florida wasn't necessarily a hotbed for wrestlers. How did you, you started young, while wrestling in high school. I know you were a seventh grader when you were starting on the varsity team. But talk about how you dealt with just being from Florida and in that time period when it was, just starting, and what that was like when there wasn't a lot of competition around.
Yeah, super hard to find any. There was no clubs. There's none of that. I was lucky enough that the high school coach where I wound up going to high school let me come in the wrestling room, as a fourth, fifth, and sixth grader to actually wrestle with the junior high. And then, my brother was on the high school team, so my mom wasn't dropping me off at 3:00 and picking me up at 3:45. So she was dropping me off at 3 and I stayed till 6. So I got to work out with the junior high team. Then I got to work out with the varsity team, and I'm only in fourth grade. So that was my workouts. I didn't have a club. And then when the USA wrestling season came along, high school coach would take me couple of tournaments in the state of Florida. And then, I was lucky enough, obviously, to go do the national stuff, the cadet nationals, the junior nationals, and had a little bit of success. But there was nothing. There was nothing to really train when I was down there in the early 90s.
And so they obviously found you then on the internet, on the national circuit, and juniors and cadets and all that stuff is where you kind of made a name for yourself. And people started to hear about you and wanted to bring you in. And like you were saying, after beating Darrell Weber, and it was the Iowa State, rivalry that you were stepping into, and that you were a piece to a puzzle that was potentially going to take them down. What was that like? I mean, did you watch Iowa, the
No.
Cyhawk?
I knew nothing. There was no internet. I saw one college wrestling match in my life. It was Arizona State, right? Coincidentally, it was Bobby on TV one night. My dad ran upstairs, woke me up late on a Saturday night and said, there's college wrestling on. I ran down there. We watched the dual meet. I don't even know who they wrestled. So I didn't know anything about Iowa State rivalry. I would go to the national tournament I went like 4 or 5 years in high school, but I knew nothing about the rivalry. And it's kind of funny. I saw Brad Penrith get pinned in '88, I believe it could have been, in Maryland. So Iowa didn't win their 10th national title in a row, and had no impact that, or no knowledge that someday I was going to be involved in that rivalry. And it was pretty cool how it all worked out.
And what was that like? I mean, to step into something so big. I mean, the just the arena and the fan base,
Yeah.
and
It's to this day, right? Everybody talks about Ohio State, Michigan football. Iowa State wrestling rivalry is top 5 in the country for any sport. And you just got to be involved. If you don't know about it, or you might think it's, oh, this that, you got to be involved. It's everything. The whole state. It's the most important thing that weekend. And I would tell you that almost in any sport, Iowa State, the state shuts down, and they go support those. And then you throw in the fact that Bobby was coming in that first year, and he had made some comments about why did he come to Iowa State, and and I remembered he said he wanted to be in the fire. He wanted to beat Gable, and he competed against Gable his whole life, and this was a chance to get Gable. And so we were right in the fire, from day one with, and Iowa was very good when we went there.
and so never being in an environment like that. Did you wrestle in it your freshman year?
No, I redshirted. But I did the next year I wrestled in it, and I had the defending national champ. I had Lincoln McElravy right out of the chute. And back then we went home and home. So I got to get beat up, I got to get beat up twice my freshman year. In this home and home deal.
That you watched the series?
I watched some of it, yes.
Did you ever hear about these schools
No.
when you were in high school?
I didn't hear about them. Oh, in high school? No, heck no. No, never. I didn't really even hear about them until we actually started. I got out of college, really. I mean, I heard about, in college with Marcus Malika. I remember all those. But, until we started, recruiting Zach Thompson and Joe Eskett and Sonny Marshall, all those guys, I didn't really, I knew nothing, man. I was from Florida. And all I knew is I wrestled and I was going to Iowa State. That was really it.
You think about that though, like of how the world was then, and how like we didn't have that just information at our fingertips, right?
Yep.
And experiencing that, and what it's like today. It's got to be a completely, because we only know what we know with our childhood and our youth, but today it's a completely different world. How do you
Right.
manage that
It's
as a
actually
coach?
it's actually amazing now. I mean, you just video wise or archives or anything, you can get whatever you want. So it's actually cool for our sport that you can get on there, type someone's name in, and actually watch a match or an interview and see that. I remember in Florida, I'd win the district tournament or the region tournament, and my dad had some clients around the state that would like send press clippings from the newspaper. I'd get them like on Thursday about these are the guys that won this region, and who to like, I don't know where they're gonna be seated. But again, well, I don't know why I got them, because it wasn't like I could scout them. I don't know, there was nowhere to get. It was just like this guy from Lemon Bay High School or Brandon won this one, and 5-2. Oh, he must not be that good. He only scored 5 points. There was no video. And but going back then, before this is crazy too, about knowing about the schools. I got the book The Edge, right, as a Christmas gift. No idea who Howard Ferguson was. No idea until later after the research and all that kind of good stuff, how that all played out.
That's amazing. That's down in Florida. It was all over Northeast Ohio, Pennsylvania, Indiana, and I've heard, but just amazing stories of how far that spread, and it's still, pertinent today. I mean, the
Right.
words.
It's still in my office today. Whenever you need a good quote from something, buddy, flip a couple pages and it's right there.
Absolutely.
Hey, Chris, do you have a favorite quote from The Edge, or one that stood out that you still look back on
No,
today?
I don't have a favorite.
Okay.
I'm not quite that guy. You know what I
Okay.
mean? I look at it, and when I look at one of them now in my life, I look back and how I used some of those back in the day, when I'll flip through and be like, man, I remember reading this, and and it motivated me. You know what I mean? And it's pretty cool to look through that book, and I can remember instances throughout my career about when I had to turn to it. I used it really a lot personally in my career, not so much in the coaching realm, because again, I can hit a few buttons and it pops up rather than going to find a book.
What's interesting about that too is because I've heard you speak about this before about the mindset coach you guys have for your team and the University of Wisconsin has, which is amazing. And you've seen this upspring of all these mental mindset groups, and a lot of them deal with wrestling. Some of them are dealing with just life in general, and a lot of meditation. But that was one of the first pieces of motivational inspiration that you read a quote from some other person that had accomplished something or some crazy feat that helped inspire you to say, oh, I could do that, or frame your mind about the things that are important versus the things that don't necessarily matter as much when you're chasing a goal.
That's right. That's right. And you know what? When I got the book, I was actually disappointed a little bit because I remember it was like wrestling coach wrote this book. This is gonna be great. And I'm flipping through it and I see George Brett, Michael Jordan, and I'm like, this isn't a wrestling coach. Like I thought it was gonna be. And then it was like the best thing I ever got in my life.
Yeah, no, it's a playbook for life. It's not
Yes.
necessarily for one particular sport. And I love that it covers everything. But I like how it's like there's been a switch. There's been an addition of that key element to success now. And hearing you speak about that, how do you guys use that in preparation for a match week? Like you've got a match coming up this weekend. When does that mental focus subject change from week to week, opponent to
You know what, man? The mental approach never changes. You know what I mean? As you're preparing to compete. It could, like this week for us, right? We're traveling to Minnesota. It's minus 54 degrees. It's a little hard. You're on the road, right? But we take that as good, right? That's what we like that. We love being together on the team. This chance for us to sit in the hotel room, play some Uno and get together and know more. Like we enjoy this more. There's no distractions. So as a coach, you start going that versus, a home duel or, a team that kicked your butt the week before. I always tell these guys, right, there's got to be something that makes you tick, right? And for me, as a coach, right, that's important for me to like get that what makes them tick. I've got to pull each that out of them individually, but then collectively as a team for the week, we got to have one mission. And we always talk about the mission. Ours is hustle, effort, attitude. That's all we want. That's our mission. We're going up there and we're out working them. We're out hustling them. Our attitude's got to be great all week, and our efforts got to be the highest it can possibly be in everything we do. And if we do that, the results will be defined. That's always the first thing in the week. And then we get into the individual stuff. Hey, this guy celebrated on you last time. Yeah, we won. Remember when he celebrated? You pull up a video in a meeting of him celebrating on. And if that, and I don't really even do that to get that guy going. I'm like, and that guy celebrated on your brother, right? That's what they're going to do. You're going to watch that guy. You might win, but he's going to celebrate on your brother. You better be ready to go out there and score bonus points for your brother. So it's all that stuff, right? You try to pull that out of them.
Coach, besides and beyond like wins and losses, like what makes you tick?
Oh man, that's a great question. I want right now. This is my career, right? This late in my career. What makes me tick is making sure that each person I come in contact with, right, which is usually 18 to 23-year-old kids throughout the day, is can be motivated, can be the best they actually possibly can be. These athletes, these kids, they think they can reach a certain level. And I would tell you that on average, that's about 30% of where they really can go. And they think getting to that 30% level is success when there's still 70% more that they are capable of achieving. So for me, that's what makes me tick, man. I get it. I got the best job in the world. I get to show up and deal with 18-year-old kids who, think that average is excelling when they've got so much more. So for me, that's what gets me, gets out of bed. I try to be example of these guys. I get here first. I'm the first one in the building. I get my workouts in at 4:30, right? It's a lifestyle. And that's what it is. Getting these kids to just realize and, It really isn't about wins and losses. It's about how can you achieve whatever you're going to be in life to the fullest.
Love
And
that.
talk about that too. You were recruiting these Walsh guys, Zach Thompson, Ed's guy, but a lot of, the Walsh dudes, with Joe Heskett and Sonny Marchetti. Talk about what were you looking for when you were in those moments, as a young assistant coach? And then compare that to sort of how times have changed and that, what are you looking for now as a, seasoned veteran?
So right, as a young coach, right, Bobby was the recruiter. And all Bobby would come in and be like, we got to get to the Buckeye State. That's it. We got to go back and get the Buckeyes. They'll pin your ass. That's what we need. We need the Buckeyes to pin these guys. That Joe Heskett, he'll cradle from you. So he was, and I'm like, and we're sitting around with Tom Ortiz, and I'm like, this guy's crazy. He's the only wants to recruit these Ohio kids. We got good kids here in Iowa and all. And he's like, I'll get them all. Don't worry. I'll get them all. And I'll tell you what, he made a lot of trips to Ohio. And he was true to his word. He brought those guys in, and they were key figures in getting our program really, really good. Heskett and Zach Thompson were, NCAA champs, NCAA finalists, and and then bringing in Sonny was amazing. Today's day and age, the kids have changed. The circumstances have changed. The NCAA has changed. All that stuff. So for me, right, the ideal recruit, the way we look at it is, I love kids that want to compete. And when you look back on it, that hasn't changed. Joe Heskett was one of the most fierce competitors we ever had. He loved to compete. Zach Thompson, same thing. So those kids that were successful back when I was young and Bobby was coaching, whereas the guys that were successful, right, the Cody Sandersons and all those guys that didn't have the biggest talent in the world, they loved to compete. And in anything. And so when we go now, kids ask us all the time, hey, do you want us to go to Fargo? Do you want? Yeah, absolutely. If you love to compete, you're our guy. And that's really the number one thing.
And what was you touched on it a little bit before about your impression of Bobby and sort of what you took, but what was the sort of the pieces of coaching advice and maybe just watching that you still use today?
Man, that's I would tell you basically what I do today is everything I do today is what I've learned from Bobby. Bobby, I've never even really heard of this word back in the day, but everybody talks about technique, conditioning. Bobby was a tactician, right? He could get any film of any opponent, and we're not breaking down techniques and how to beat him, but it was tactics. What kind of tactics are you going to use to beat this guy? And how was lost? What's he talking about? This dude single-legged me 14 times. I need to defend it. No, it's about the tactics and this. And that changed my perspective on watching film. That changed my perspective on wrestling. That changed my on scouting kids and recruiting kids. And his tactics were masterful. He was the master. And then you add that to how technically sound he was. But the main thing Bobby really rehearsed, I said it now, the main thing he really instilled on me was rehearsal. The word rehearsal. It wasn't drilling. It was, you have to rehearse. You're rehearsing your single leg. You've got to get reps. You've got to rehearse your reps. And it was, to this day, if you walked in the wrestling room and you told these guys, hey, we got 8-minute warm-up, 6-minute stretch, and 25-minute rehearsals, they would laugh at you. And I think we might have laughed at Bobby a little bit with rehearsal. What do you think? But that's what it's about. It's going out there and the word rehearsal and drilling and getting your reps.
Yeah, that's you're about to perform, right?
That's right. Exactly right.
And do you see, because I think of Bobby's coaching lineage, right? You Keller at Wartburg too. You guys are doing phenomenal things wherever you guys go. Do you see similar styles, techniques, coaching, from those other guys that are,
You do, right? This, Ben, you've been to Bobby's camps. You did his penetration drills probably 1,000,000 times. Nobody in the country teaches that, but I see Penn State warming up doing it. You know what I mean? And I see Kale, doing the steering wheel drill and moving the guy's head and all those things. So those things really stick out when you and we talk about it all the time, about, how did Kale develop his ankle pick? Well, it came off that steering wheel drill, and it came, and I see his kids doing that, and I can pick that up in the videos and things I see, like that's Bobby Douglas written all over it.
And then when you wrestled at Iowa State, very much like our series, you had a rival the entire time you were there with Lincoln McElravy. And you guys, I mean, it was just, will he get out of your way at some point? Talk about what that was like to have like one specific person that you
So Ben, this goes all the way back to Cadet Nationals, our rivalry.
That's huge.
He beat me to keep me off the cadet world team in the finals there too. So we were wrestling since we were 14 years old. And then we go all the way through college, right? And then he keeps me off of like 4 more world teams, an Olympic team. So from 14 to 30 years old, this guy, I never beat him. But it was great. I loved it because I knew that I had the best guy in the world 90 minutes down the road from me. And if I could beat that guy, I could beat anybody. And that's in the world, right? And that's what motivated me. And I'll give you, right, since we're talking about Bobby, not too many people have heard this before, but my senior year, we really felt like we could get Lincoln. He redshirted our junior year. I won the NCAA championship, so we really didn't compete much since our sophomore year together. We had a year off. He came back our senior year, and Bobby said, you got to wrestle him 5 times. If you wrestle him 5 times, we're going to get him. I'm like, 5 times? What are you talking about? And he said, home and home is 2. The All-Star meet is 3. We'll get him in the Midland Finals. That's 4. And then you'll get him in the NCAA championships, and that's when you're going to get him. Doesn't matter what happens in those first 4, but we got to close the gap. We got to close the gap. We got to beat him up and let him know that you're going to be the NCAA champ. And dude, lo and behold, I wrestled him home and home, got beat. I wrestled him in the Midlands Finals, got beat. And then I didn't get him in the All-Star meet. He got hurt, had those bad concussions. So then we get to the NCAA championships, and he beats me in overtime. Closest match I ever had. And you're walking off the mat, right? This is typical Bobby. I'm expecting like, hey, great careers. My last match ever. Good job. I love you. Blah, blah. He's like, I told you we had to get him 5 times. We only got him 4. You know what I mean? So, and that was it. So it was great.
Sounds like my dad.
That's funny. But you think about that from a tactical standpoint, because he was looking at it like, we're getting every single match, we're getting closer. And he's probably right. You would have got him if you had that.
It's kind of wild, right? I had no idea. I just knew 5 times and keep wrestling hard. That was it. And but no, that dude was really good, man. I credit him for all my success. When I closed the gap on him on one thing, he was always one step ahead of me. He had gone to something else. And then when I got to be able to solve that, he had gone to something else. So, I credit him with a lot of my successes for sure, because I was always chasing the best.
And what was that like to have someone like that you just couldn't get over? It was always pushing you, but it fueled you.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. Every day it fueled me. Every day that was the guy I chased every day. And then I got a year off from him when he redshirted, and I got to go into Carver Hawkeye, and I tech follow the guy, and it was very fulfilling. I enjoyed it, right? But I had envisioned Tech and Lincoln McElravy in Carver Hawkeye. So it was a little bit of a disappointment. That's who I was still chasing, but it's awesome, right? Rivalries are great, man. I think that's what sports are about. And we try to, right? You asked me some of those motivational tactics we use. I try to make everything a rivalry. I try to, we got Minnesota this week, man. This is a rivalry. They're right next door to us. They take our recruits. This is something we got to go. And we try to create it because, man, I was in that thing. I was in that thing for a lot of years, coaching afterward. And you do get a little more hype for those rivalries.
And it is kind of special too. Not too many people get to experience something like that. I was talking with John Heffernan, and he, likened the St. Walsh rivalries to those Cy-Hawk duels where it was just pure hatred, right? And that was back in the 80s and 90s when, pushing and shoving was part of the game, right?
Right. Let me tell you real quick about hatred. I go to the World Championships in Bulgaria, and I am Tom Brands is one of the coaches. I'm still now I'm coaching at Iowa State, And you know how it is. You go overseas. We're all Team USA. We're sitting there. My old man flies over, and I sit down to have dinner in one of the banquet rooms. It's just like me. So Tom Brands comes in. He sits down my dad. So we're all three sitting there having dinner. Great deal. The next day we do the same thing. The next day we do the same thing. About the fourth day there, Tom Brands comes up to my dad and he's like, "Listen, I can't eat with you anymore." And he's like, "Why not?" And he's like, "Well, because I'm starting to like you, and then in this Iowa State thing, we can't do this anymore." And that was it. And that was it.
Everybody loves Ernie. How's he doing?
Right? He's doing great. He's doing great.
That's
and
awesome.
And to my dad, he was like, "What the hell just happened?" And I'm like, I said, "Dad, this is it. We're in it, man. We're in it. We'll get along when it's all over with. But we are in the thick of this rivalry, and it's for real."
And you do get along with the brand. I've heard you speak before
Yeah,
about the
man.
deep
I
respect
try
you
to
have
get
for
along with
him.
everybody. Everybody. You can't judge people by those 2 hours you coach against each other, right? Because man, we are the most competitive guys in the world. And if we didn't argue and we didn't fight, we didn't do this, right? Someone's getting the edge on you, man. You know what I mean? So no, I love those guys. They're good for the sport, right? You either love them or you hate them, and they produce champions and they're successful, and they do it their way, and that's a good thing.
And you mentioned that you studied when you got to Iowa State. You studied Iowa, and tried to figure out what was their secret to success. And that was something that Coach Ferguson did with St. Ed's, is he built the program based off of what Iowa was. What did you find when you were doing that research that was a key to their success at that time?
Well, right, back in the day, right, they were tougher, they were meaner, they were in better shape than everybody. Everybody back then always said Tom and Terry Brands trained those guys. Gable trained them. They had no technique. They just went harder. That's the furthest thing from the truth, that when I actually studied these guys, they got great technique, right? You have some great technique. You have a pace that you can wrestle for an hour straight, and you're a mean dude, you're going to be in almost a lot of matches. Okay. Now, you see some of that's changing 30 years later, right? With whatever Penn State's doing, I'm studying them now. You know what I mean? However is happening, but still, I was falling off a little bit, right? That style has fallen off, but they're still ranked 4th or 5th in the country. It still works. You know what I mean? But is it good enough to beat the top? Man, you're always going to be in the match if you're in great shape, you have great technique, and you're meaner than a billy goat, So that's what they brought, and that's what I had to be. To beat McElravy, I knew I had to be tougher than him. I had to be in better shape than him. I had to have great technique, and I had to have that will to go compete. And, those principles right there helped me succeed in life.
And then you look at them as the dynasty then and Penn State as the dynasty now. What are those key elements that you maybe see a comparison to, or maybe a complete opposite of what's happening in today's landscape?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, great comparisons, right? And I think there's also some differences. The comparisons are, right, Kale has guys that they love to compete, and they'll die on the mat to win. And that's what I've always had. But now, Kale's got these guys believing that they can beat anybody, they can win anything, they can do it all. And then also, right, I think the kid right now, today's young kid, is so far advanced than the kids that were coming out of. I mean, look at me, man. I came out of high school. I wrestled 3 months a year. You know what I mean? These kids now are coming out 12 months a year. That's all they do. They go to this club. They're traveling overseas. They're going there. They're working at this club. So I think also he's getting also really some very, very, very good kids. And then he's enhancing what they do and their style, right? It's not one style. If you look at Iowa back in the day, it was one style. Kale's got guys that wrestle. They can roll around. They can outshape you. They can ride you. They can turn you. I think they're doing a good job of making the kids really well-rounded and wrestling in all kinds of different positions.
Chris, do you think that getting kids to believe, like you had mentioned, Kale's getting them to believe that they can go out and win and do anything. Do you think getting kids to believe is the biggest challenge in your role?
It depends on the kid.
Okay.
But yeah, if the kid doesn't think he can win and he has all the talent in the world, it's a big problem. But you get somebody that really thinks they should win, And that's what I learned. That's another Bobby Douglas thing that I really learned was you gotta, what are you saying before you go out there? And for me, when I put my foot on the line, all I said was, I deserve to win because the work I put in, the things I do, and when I said that, I truly believed it. Now, how do you get kids to actually believe that? That's another story. And for me, it's just like, did you do the work? Did you do the film study? Did you prepare? Okay, dude, you've done everything. You deserve to win. Now you just got to go perform. And if this thing's not working, right, it's hard to get the rest of the body to work. So you got to believe that you do it, but how you believe you do something is by putting the work in. And that's all Bobby used to tell us. So me, I just put the work in, told myself I deserved to win, and I went and let it fly.
And that goes along with your philosophy that you mentioned about keep showing up. Talk about that and where did that come from?
Man, that's life, right? That's life. We all get kicked. We all do, right? And the people that keep showing up, no matter what the circumstances are the people that'll succeed. And the people that are succeeding, right? Then, and it goes both ways. If you are successful and you stop showing up, well, you're going to fall off. So for us, man, and you got to remember, Ben, I came from little programs. Well, after Iowa State, right, when I started coaching, I went to UTC Chattanooga, I went to South Dakota State. So I didn't have the best kids in the world. So we had to build them a little different. And for us, it was like, dude, a spade's a spade. We are going to take some losses. Okay. But you keep showing up. You keep showing up. And in March, no one's going to want to wrestle you. Right. But if you take these losses in January, February, and you put your head down and decide, oh, I don't know if I can get this guy to kick my butt. I don't want to work anymore. I don't want to do this, that. Right. Then that is life. When you're in a job and someone gets promoted and you don't, what are you going to do? Quit working? You quit feeding your family, quit and go find something else? No, put your head down, show up, and you go show the boss that he made a mistake by producing. And that's what we talk about every day. And guess what, man? Every day when I get out of bed early and I don't want to get up, right? I live what I preach. You got to keep showing up. I don't feel good today. I got a fever. I show up. You know what I mean? I got kicked in the face last night by a great team. We got shut out. Guess what? I'm not getting any better by laying in bed. I got to get up and show up and keep doing it. And that's part of getting the kids to believe.
If you were to say like your three principles to be successful in life, one would be persistence or perseverance, however, that's keep showing up. What would the other two be?
Well, the next one's work, right?
Okay.
You got to keep showing
Doing
up.
it.
You got to do the work.
Yeah.
Nothing's handed to you. Right. So if you keep showing up, you keep doing the work, right? And then of course for me, right, and I'll combine these, right? But effort might go in the same thing, but you got to have a great attitude. You know what I mean? If you can show up, you can do the work, and if you're a miserable person, or you know what I mean, or you're miserable doing the work, well, you are your own, I don't want to say critic, but you're causing your own problems. You know what I mean? Everybody in this world has issues, right? It's how you deal with them. And if you show up with a great attitude, that's infectious. And I think that's very, very important to succeed in anything. Everybody wants to say have fun. Well, I put those two things in the same category, right? Your attitude and having fun are basically the same things. And I've always I was taught this at a very young age. You show up, you show up on time, and you don't stop working until the job is done.
Got it. That's great. That's great.
Love it.
And then talk about that too, because you're in a great program. I've heard you, rave about Wisconsin and the athletic department, the facilities, the support, the atmosphere. What is it about Wisconsin wrestling that people maybe don't know about, need to know about, to get more, respect, eyes, and love?
Yeah, there's a lot of tradition here. Back in the day, Lee Kemp, multi-time national champion, right? So there's it can be done here, right? It just hasn't been done for a long time. It's an awesome city. Everybody knows Madison is an amazing place. The school, right? If you can't get a better education, this is an unbelievable education. We just hadn't had results for a while that are on par with making saying Wisconsin wrestling is a great wrestling school. We're on our way though. We're doing great things. We've had a couple of good years. We've got some great recruits, and it can be done here. That's what is super important for everybody to know. It's been done here, and we're gonna do it here.
And you're also right before we jumped on, you showed us your next door neighbor. You're got an office right next to Luke Fickell. Is that
No,
correct?
actually, I don't. He was knocked on the door about 20 minutes before we got on this thing and came and saw us. I think he was walking back. The cafeteria is right over the road, so he's probably walking back from the cafeteria. He's got to walk past our offices, so he always bangs on there and then comes in. That's number two today. I got to spend 30 minutes with him in the sauna today, so that's our usual routine.
And obviously, great football player for Ohio State, a coach at Wisconsin now. But for those that don't know, he was an Ohio All-Star, heavyweight wrestler, high school. Did you know that about him?
So Ben, the Pittsburgh Classic, my senior year, I got to wrestle Kerry Colott. They put us at the end of the dual meet. I'm last, right? USA has not beaten Pennsylvania in 30-some years. I don't know. You can do the math or the research. I'm not sure what it was. My match comes down to the end, and Penn State or Pennsylvania is losing by like 4 points. So if he pins me, he wins the duel. Well, the guy that went on the mat before me was Luke Fickell. He was on our team. He was our heavyweight. And he went out there and got taken down to his back and blah, blah, reverses this dude. I think the guy's name was Wally Wickline from Pennsylvania. He pins that guy. Could put us in range that if I just don't get pinned, we win the duel. And I went out there and I tied Cole out, but I had never talked to him about that till he got this job. And when he came here, 3 years ago, whatever, I was in 22, 23, we wrestled, that was 92. So that was 30 years later. I go to his press conference and I grab him and I'm like, at first I said, congrats. I said, dude, you won the duel. You won the duel for us. And he's like, you're talking about the Pittsburgh Classic. He knew all about it. And he told me the story. He's like, oh man, I made a mistake. I went on spring break the week before that. I flew right from spring break to the match. I was so out of shape that if I didn't pin him, I said, what happened? Because I got thrown to my back. And the only way I can get off my back was to jam my thumb in his eye. And he did it. And he rolled over and I pinned him. And if I didn't, I would have got stuff. But it was great. It was great. And now, man, he's my man. He's my one of my best friends here, my confidant. We hang out all the time. His kids wrestle. They're in our room. It's an awesome relationship.
That's solid. Yeah, Mike, his younger brother and I were college teammates at Penn. And I remember just Luke from just being a powerhouse in Ohio.
Dude, so good. Such a great wrestler.
He, I think, when he wrestled, I think he wrestled Bruce Baumgartner when he was a senior in high school and took him down.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
He proceeded to get beat, but
yeah,
he took down Bruce Baumgartner when Bruce was at like the height. That was like the early 90s. So, but I brought that up because I knew that you guys sort of stick up for each other. I know he was getting some flack from some of the press on the season he had, and you sort of came to his defense. What sort of inspired you to do that when you start hearing?
Well, man, listen, he's a human being. And when people start trashing his family and you know what I mean? Like, what are we doing? This is sport. You know what I mean? Like, you think he's going out there trying to lose? You know what I mean? And so I get it, right? I get everything in college athletics. It's financial and we got to make money for the school and football is this and that. But man, I got sick of listening to things that were said that just aren't him. You know what I mean? And he's a great human being. He's a religious man. He's a great father. He's a great husband. He's a great friend. And it was just time. Nobody was picking up for him. And it just had to be publicly stated that I got him. I got his back. You guys, you want to talk smack on, come spend a day with him. Come see what it's like. Let's see what what a great guy he is. And, that's just what we do for each other.
That's awesome. Well, listen, I wanted to load up a little video here for you to take a look at. So when you go back to see him, you can tell him that you saw one of his high school matches, which not too many people have seen because there's not a lot of stuff out there. But this is one I know that's definitely not out there. So let's just bring that up real quick. Hold on, stand by.
6'5", 228-pound Luke Fickell from Columbus DeSales, a junior. He also stands undefeated, 30-0, and he's a defending state and national champion.
Look how young he looks.
They got two good ones out here for heavyweights.
I tell you, this is a matchup everybody wants to see. I think these could be the two best in Ohio. Fickle, of course, national champ at 220 as a 10th grader. I mean, that's unprecedented. It just doesn't happen. And yes, Fickle outweighed by about 40 pounds. He's probably the most devastating upperweight wrestler I've ever seen on the top position, and it's right to the fall.
He's only gone the distance in 2 matches so far this year. The rest have been by falls. So it's 2-2. He's going to lead it 4-0. Minute and 5 to go, first period.
I'm still acting like that today.
Fickle with the tilt.
Oh, there he is.
A tilt.
He'll build 2 more on that one, maybe 3.
Don't see that move against 270-pounders
No,
too
you
often.
don't.
And back
yes.
to the back points. You can see why he's just a pinning machine. It's
38
over.
seconds and it ends.
1:23. About his usual time.
What an awesome, awesome wrestler. And only a junior.
Both boys just juniors.
And Norman Ayers has had a great year. His first loss. And there's your heavyweight champion, 6'5", 228-pound Luke Fickle from Columbus DeSales, who's undefeated now at 31-0 and 2-time consecutive heavyweight champion.
Dude, that's amazing. That's a beatdown right there, huh?
Luke Fickle was one of those guys, like a heavyweight who was, 6'5", 220. You didn't see a lot of guys like that back then, did you?
No, that was he's a beast, man. He's a beast. That was a great match. It's amazing. He's got some kids too, man. His youngest twins are going to be that tall and that big too. That are training hard.
Are they wrestling?
They are wrestling. They do it all, but I think he wants them to wrestle. I think he wants them. He takes them. I mean, it's great when he shows up at these youth practices and he shows up to tournaments and he coaches these kids. It's awesome. It's fun to see. He's in his element when he's in the wrestling room. That's for sure.
Does he get in the wrestling room? Does he get in and actually?
He gets in here and start, his when his kids are in here, he gets in here and shows technique and he gets, and we always have some youth kids. We have some coaches that have some kids and it's great when he gets in there and shows technique and you know how it is in wrestling. We show something. He's like, here, let me add this and this and this. So yeah, he's all over it. He loves it.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Score changing, like you're like 2-2. Like, does that take you back?
That was funny. I said the same thing when he started counting those second set of back points. I'm like, all right, is he going to count 3 times, 4 times, 5 times? How many points is that? Yeah. So that's the sport has evolved. That's for sure.
How do you think that's impacted the sport?
I think it's great, right? Nobody wants to see 1-1 matches. At least, whatever. A 10-9 match is better than, a 2-1 match, in people's eyes. Right. So it's pretty cool, right? I think the easier, make it easy to score points, not hard. And, we need crowds. We need wrestling's hard to understand to the average eye. Basketball, right? You get behind this line, it's 3 points. In front of the line, it's 2 points. Pretty easy to understand. Score. Us, 1 point. How come he swipes at 2? It's 2, 5, it's 3. He tape down, it's 2. So I think it's great. It's hopefully we can make it easier for people to understand.
Wrestling, you can see, has changed from the 90s to today. And what else have you seen about wrestling that's changed from sort of your heyday to now and how kids are handling themselves?
Yeah. First of all, the rules have changed, right? I think the best thing in our sport is that out of bounds rule. These guys in our, my younger coaches pull up some of my matches when I wrestle, and like, I think I went out of bounds. I think we counted like 28 times in a match. So now with this new these out of bounds rules, and high school just went to it here, at least I know in Wisconsin, within the last couple of years, it's been amazing. So you got some more space to wrestle on. And I think it's great. And I think now also what's changed too, in some high school wrestling and all that is the top positions become very important. It's not just take them down, let them up, take them down, let them up. I think a lot of people are really training mat wrestling, which again, Bobby Douglas, that's all he talked about, right? You gotta be able to mat wrestle to win championships. And I think kids are really starting to do that really well lately.
Nice. We do our Mount Rushmore. Who is on your Mount Rushmore of wrestling?
In terms of what? In terms of like accomplishments, in terms of
I think from any of our guests, it could be whatever you want. We've had Teague Moore gave us 3 Mount Rushmores, one for international, one for college, one for Pennsylvania. Shane Sparks, he had 5 heads on his Mount Rushmore. I think it's whoever you feel, if you were to look up at a monument that, spoke to you, who would those 4 heads?
well, I think obviously it's Bobby Douglas, right? And these are people that have, and I think Cale Sanderson winning, what he did in college is absolutely amazing. Um, you know, I start to look at this younger generation, right? I mean, obviously I'm kind of older school, what Bruce Baumgartner and John Smith did to start the international stuff. And then you got to throw in, Jordan Burroughs, who's continuing and, that what he's done. So I would tell you those guys right now would be what I would look at.
That's been, yeah.
That's a good list. Like it.
And then last question I'll ask sort of on the college thing. I look at, doing research, I found that you're all over the place on the internet. You seem very social media savvy. You're doing the jump around. You got press conferences every week. How do you get into that? Do you enjoy it? Are your daughters helping?
Yeah.
Where's the
Well, I tell you what, I don't enjoy it, right? But you have to do it. When we recruit kids, shoot, some of them don't even answer their text message or their phone calls, but they answer their DMs on Instagram or their Snapchats, right? So it's all about relating to the student athlete that you're kind of recruiting, and you're recruiting 14 to 16-year, 17-year-old kids. So they're always on their phones. The easiest way to get into their homes or their phones is social media, is on the internet. So we want to put our program out there. We want to do it all social media. I've got great assistant coaches who know technology. I've got great media people here at Wisconsin that get it all out. All they tell me to do is how to click, retweet, or how to click share. And we get it out there, but they tell me what to do. So it's awesome.
Last question, Frank.
Last question for me. I love the word legacy. I love thinking about, what do I leave behind, right? What's that look like for you?
I don't know, man. I know it's hard when you're still going, right? I hear that word a lot, and I want to leave my legacy. Man, I just want to be known as somebody that gave it their all and cared about people. A lot of people, I would tell you, I'm very misunderstood. I would tell you by a lot of people, by, I don't know how I act or whatever it is. Right. So for all those people, right, it would be just to, basically understand who I was and what I was trying to accomplish, and that I cared about, everybody I've come in contact with.
Love it. And then last question for me, what was the greatest thing when looking back at that rivalry that you had with Iowa?
For me, it was when we finally beat them. 2005, Nick Postelano pinned a guy named Cole Pape at Hilton Coliseum for the first win in, I don't know, 20 years that we had lost to him for 20 straight years or something like that. And you know what's crazier than that, Ben, is that was the last time we'd beaten Iowa until this year, till Iowa State finally got them this year. So 2000, was another about 21 years. So 2 wins in the last 40 years for Iowa State over Iowa. And we were the group that did it in 05.
Well, let's see Wisconsin. Let's get Wisconsin out there.
Let's go. We almost got them this year. Hey, it's awesome walking back into that arena this year. I thought I was wearing a Cyclone sweater. You know what I mean? They are yelling at me the same way, and you sucked at Iowa State, and it was awesome. I loved it.
That's fantastic. Well, listen, we want to thank you for coming on, sharing a little bit about your experience running in with some of these guys. And last thing too, thinking about the Zach Thompsons, the Joe Heskets, the Sonny Marchettis, those guys that came through that time period, how would you summarize those guys and your experience with them?
Man, they're my friends today, right? I was just back at Iowa State the other day and hung out with Zach Thompson for the night. We're all in a big group thread, all of us, all ex-Cyclones, and obviously they're part of it. that we communicate on, at least once a week through there. So there's a lot of respect amongst all of us. And I thank them all the time for the effort they gave us and all that good stuff. And now, as friends, as friendships and colleagues, as friends and colleagues now, it's, I couldn't ask for anything more. Great human beings.
That's awesome. And congratulations too. I know you're inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Oh, thank you. Hey, I also want to say, your old man painted me a nice picture that is still hanging up in my house. I don't know if you aired it. Dude, look at that. Look at that.
That's against Nebraska, right?
Timor Terry at the bottom over there.
Wow.
That is by your dad. That is still in my home today. So your old man had an impact on me too. So that's amazing.
Well, I appreciate it. Like we like to say in the Dynasty Effect, these ripples go out and they touch a lot of people that are still in the wrestling world today. And what you guys are doing.
He really emphasized the arms on that painting too, didn't he?
I told him.
Look at that. They're huge.
Look, I had to pay him an extra $10 and he did it for me.
Those are those pythons that they were referring to in the opening.
Long time ago.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Chris, thank you for taking the time today.
All right, you guys are awesome.
Thank you, Chris. You're doing all the best this season. Keep healthy, keep safe, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. All the best. Have a great year. Take care.
All right, you too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
The story needs to be told just for the fact that it was a great time for high school sports. It really was.
You got the bad boys here and you got the good guys here. And then they went at it for 10 years.
It was a strong narrative with a good arc to it. And I think people could see that it wasn't going to be replicated anytime soon.
You look back on it.
Like you're doing a podcast on it right now.
Like that's how big it was, and that's what I wanted to be a part of.
At the end of the day, it was trying to help kids become their best selves at a really high level. And so from that stance, it's a story that's very American.
I think that's a good way to explain it.